What's up, everybody? I'm Andre Wynn. You can find my channel at MMA Dre. If you're new to this series, this is MMA 101. We're going to talk all things combat sports. Today's episode, we're specifically going to talk about the only live sporting event that we've seen since COVID-19, and that's UFC 249. Hopefully, you got to watch the fights yourself, but if you didn't, here are my top 5 takeaways from the action last night. Let's get into it. Takeaway number 5, Calvin Kattar is a problem. If you don't know the name Calvin Kattar, you better learn it quick because he is a monster. We saw a lot of great fights last night. Francis Ngannou put Rozenstruik to sleep in under 30 seconds. Justin Gaethje defeated somebody who was probably the best, or at least one of the best, non-champion fighters in the UFC. But still, Calvin Kattar definitely stood out. Calvin Kattar was willing to engage with Jeremy Stephens, who is known as one of the heaviest hitters in the featherweight division. Kattar not only traded shots, but he looked calm, composed, patient, yet his striking was still really crisp and clean, and some of the best striking we've seen out of the featherweight division. In fact, that elbow to Jeremy Stephens' mouth was one of the most picturesque moments of the entire night. So, Calvin Kattar, he put the featherweight division on notice. I could easily see him fighting Chan Sung Jung or Yair Rodriguez next. I think those would be really exciting fights. And eventually, I could even see Calvin Kattar challenging for the title. He's probably not there yet. I'd say give it another few fights, maybe 2 or 3, but he's definitely in the mix and in the running for being a potential contender here in the next few years. Takeaway number 4, 2-year layoffs are not good. Last night, we saw 2 fighters returning from a 2-year layoff. That was Fabricio Werdum and Dominic Cruz. Cruz, he didn't look necessarily too bad, but let me tell you, Fabricio Werdum was awful. I actually chose Fabricio Werdum to win over Alexei Oleinik, but man, was that a poor choice. Oleinik has been fighting since 1997. He had recently been knocked out in 2 out of the last 3 fights before UFC 249, so I thought for sure all of that mileage, that wear and tear, and the knockouts that he had suffered previous to this event, I thought for sure Fabricio Werdum would be able to capitalize on that and that we would see basically the end of Oleinik or another KO for him. But unfortunately, we did not, and we saw the worst version of Fabricio Werdum we've probably ever seen in his career. Werdum was slow, Werdum was sluggish, and this was, like I said, the worst fight that we've seen in his career. There are a few bright moments that we saw that came off the takedown, which we're going to explain here in a little bit. But still, he looked really bad, really poor. And so I guess this is a lesson, not just for me, but for you. If you're ever taking picks, I know there's guys that we think, hey, they're a better fighter than the other person. But if they've gone through an extended layoff, maybe you err on the side of caution and either avoid making that pick if you're doing bets, or you just say, hey, I'm going to choose the other guy. Even if you think that they're not necessarily the better fighter, these long layoffs definitely have an impact on fighters. Takeaway number 3, don't be narrow-minded. This is also related to the Fabricio Werdum fight, in which he was able to score quite a few really good takedowns, like I had mentioned. He had this really nice underhook to a knee pick, which he utilized several times, but unfortunately, he never really did anything with those positions. And in fact, off those takedowns, he was even able to get full mount and back control several times, but still, he was not able to capitalize and he didn't win the fight. What I believe happened is it really was a close fight. The fight ended up being a split decision, and I think Fabricio Werdum's corner was probably telling him, hey, we've got to start going for the finish, So Werdum, using his best skill set, he took Oleinik down, but he would get in these positions, and the only thing he would try to go for would be submissions. So there are several times where we saw him attempt an arm in guillotine. Then off of the takedown, we saw him going for numerous arm bars and kimuras and rear naked chokes, and none of that stuff was working. What we didn't see from Fabricio Werdum on the ground, especially when he was on top, was we didn't see any strikes. Instead of opening up Oleinik with punches and elbows, he just continued to grapple and turned it into a grappling match. And honestly, had Werdum done more damage on the mat, where even just getting a few hits in, 1, I think that would have opened up those submissions that he was looking for, but 2, just in the eyes of the judges, they likely would have given him both of those rounds in which he got a takedown. But instead, he became so focused on, I can only do one thing, which is go for the submission, get the finish, and that's what ultimately led to his downfall. The lesson that we could learn here is that yes, certain fighters are really good at a specific skill set, but at the end of the day, this is still an MMA fight and you have a lot of options available to you. Even if you're really good at submissions and you know, hey, I could probably finish a fight that way, you still have to realize I can still use striking to open up my other submissions, or I could use striking to open up my takedowns. You have a lot of options available to you in MMA, and you cannot become so narrow-minded that you only do one thing. Takeaway number 2, the UFC knows how to seize the moment. There's a reason why the UFC is one of the largest sports brands in the world and arguably offers the best combat sports product on the market. The UFC makes the best out of every situation. For example, if we take a look back in 2016, the first fight at Madison Square Garden, the UFC put together Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez. We saw Tyron Woodley fight, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. All of that made for an incredibly entertaining card, especially being the first one ever to occur in Madison Square Garden. Or you can look at the Chad Mendes and Conor McGregor fight. It was short notice. Everybody thought, I don't know about Chad Mendes, but they were able to hype it up so much that there was tons of pay-per-view buys, and they also had live music for the walkout ceremonies. So you had Conor McGregor walking out with live music, Chad Mendes walking out with live music. This was something that hasn't ever been repeated, but it looked fantastic for the moment. Another event where the UFC seized the opportunity that they had at their feet was CM Punk. CM Punk was 40 years old, had never fought before, was a complete novice, yet they were able to capitalize on that moment. They got a ton of fans to watch, a guy that honestly had no business being in the UFC, but everybody was looking to watch it, and it was entertaining. And now, during a pandemic, when there are no other sports, the UFC put on an amazing event. The matchmaking was nearly perfect. In 10 fights, we saw 5 TKOs or knockouts. There wasn't much more that you could ask for. This card had it all, and the UFC knew what they were doing. This was going to be the only sport that had eyes on it. You saw people tweeting the entire night, including professional basketball players, professional football players, and of course other mixed martial artists. It was the event that had the most pre-pay-per-view buys ever for the UFC, so they absolutely know what they're doing. They know how to market the sport. They know how to get the most bang for their buck, and they seize every opportunity that they can. Final takeaway number 1, Henry Cejudo is the greatest combat sports athlete of all time. I'm not saying he's the best at MMA or the MMA GOAT, but when it comes to all-around combat sports, you have to list him as the greatest. Henry Cejudo has an Olympic gold medal in freestyle wrestling, and he was the youngest at the time to ever do it from the United States. Since then, his record's been broken by Kyle Snyder, but still, that doesn't take away from the fact that at one point in time, Henry Cejudo was the best freestyle wrestler in his weight class on the planet. Cejudo was also a boxing Golden Gloves champion in Arizona. He's won 2 titles, so 125 and 135. He's defended both of them, and he's beaten outstanding fighters such as Demetrius Johnson and last night, Dominic Cruz. You can argue that we've seen other really great combat sports athletes such as Ronda Rousey, Daniel Cormier, Yoel Romero, Miesha Tate, but still none of them have hit the pinnacles that Henry Cejudo has in all of the combat sports that they competed in. Henry Cejudo has literally achieved gold in everything that he's done. Now, if you haven't heard, Henry Cejudo announced his retirement at 33 years old, and from the looks on Dana White's face, he was pissed off and taken by surprise. But that leaves the question, what's going to happen to the 135 division? Right now, the 3 highest ranked fighters in that division that haven't fought each other are Marlon Moraes, Corey Sandhagen, and Peter Yan. They're all coming off of a win streak. They're all really exciting. I predict we're going to see 2 out of the 3 in a fight for the championship for the vacated belt. Who do I think will win? I don't know. Marlon is ranked the highest. He's really strong, really technical. I think we haven't seen the best of Peter Yan. He hasn't been tested against some of the competition we've seen some of the other guys. But then Corey Sandhagen has quite a bit of a reach, and he knows how to use his length. So I think the different matchups that you can make between these 3 guys are all going to be exciting. I really do think that one of these 3 is going to be the next bantamweight champion. Do you agree with these takeaways? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, if you're looking for more general sports content, my friends and we have our other YouTube channel that's called The Slump Buster. There we talk about basketball, football, baseball, hockey, whatever you'd like to hear. We have podcasts, movie reviews, reaction videos, so whatever you're interested, we've got it there at The Slump Buster. But of course, if combat sports is your thing, stay tuned. We've got plenty more videos coming for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.